Happy Sunday, and welcome to another fantastic Cook Along Live. I'm Rob Sogamoni, and I'm your host, and tonight we are going to be making chicken enchilada soup. This is an amazing recommendation from my sister, so thank you, Rachel, for thinking of this one and sending me a really cool recipe. I did quite a bit of modification to the recipe. The one that I got was it looked really good, but there were some ways that we could take it and elevate it just a bit. So I kind of focused on that, made it just a slight bit more complicated, but not too much. It's not that bad. Don't run away. This is fine. We're gonna be good. We're all good. Hey, Allison. Hey, Nini. How's it going? Major dilemma. After 2 stores, we still don't have cumin. You know what? Honestly, I would just leave it out. Don't worry about either one of them. Well, don't worry about the cumin. If you want to add a little bit of coriander, okay. It won't make or break the dish, so don't worry too much about it. You can always go ahead and try it with the next time you make it and see what the differences are. I love that. So I'm gonna get started with a beer just because we're making a chicken enchilada soup. I'm gonna go with a Mexican-inspired beer here. Pour y'all whatever you would like to drink. And let's get started. Get this in the recycle. All right, so we're gonna get started by taking our 4 chicken thighs and we're going to sear them off in our pan. This is gonna add color, so that fond at the bottom of the cast iron or Dutch oven or whatever you're using as your vessel, and it'll give us a really nice depth of flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this up on, I'm gonna say like medium high. You don't want it crazy hot, but you want to make sure that it's warm enough that you're going to get some browning on this because you definitely want those brown bits in the pan. Hey, Laura, how's it going? Long time no see. Awesome. Welcome back. Yes, so this is one of the mods. One of the mods was just to use boneless, skinless chicken breasts on the original recipe, and I thought some bone-in, skin-on thighs to get some really good browning in the pan and add that extra layer of flavor would just be a little bit of a benefit. Their version also uses a really small amount of chicken stock. I almost tripled it because the version that they made was really, really, really thick, like with 8 C's at the end of thick. I like my soup to be more of a soup, so it's still, it still gets nice and thick and creamy. Don't get me wrong, it's not watery at all, but I used a little bit more chicken, or in my case, turkey stock, than they did. And the reason I'm using turkey stock is because I made a bunch at Thanksgiving and I've still got like 8 quarts left or something like that. How much is left? So I've got about 4 quarts of turkey stock left over from Thanksgiving. So I'm just using it up before it goes bad. Good to know about cumin. Hate cumin. Yeah, honestly, anything that you ever make, if it calls for this has cilantro in it. Well, not in it, but as a topping. If you don't like cilantro, leave out the cilantro. Our guacamole also has cilantro in it. If you don't like cilantro, just leave it out. It's fine. What am I going to start with? We're going to get our chicken in here. I need to get some olive oil. Any kind of an oil will work. I'm just using extra virgin, but you can use regular olive oil. You can use light. You can use peanut oil. Doesn't really matter. The point is to get a nice brown layer on the bottom of the pan and to get our chickens nice and browned up. So we're just going to put them in one layer. And you absolutely want to hear that sizzle. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and take this. I'm going to walk over to the sink cam. We're going to rinse this off so that we can use it when the chicken is done browning. We can let it rest, let the chicken rest on this while we kind of get the rest of the soup going. I'm just going to give this a real quick sudsing, and then I'll set it over on my little drying rack thing over on the side and let it kind of dry off while the chicken cooks. Next step on your oven. I want you to set it to high broil, and I want you to take your oven rack and put it to the top or the second from the top. You don't want it all the way, like if it's almost touching, you don't want it that high. But if you want it about a ear of corn's distance from the broiler burner, let's say. Got some chicken goo on my hand, so I'm gonna soap up. Now here in California, it's early January, January 15th, so I guess mid-January. And we're still dealing with some of those crazy rains, those atmospheric rivers, or whatever you want to call them. It's really kind of miserable over here. So a lot of what I've been making here on Cook Along Live the past couple of weeks has really been for comfort food. I really want to just kind of warm people's hearts, get some really good, tasty comfort food going. What are you growling at? He says, I can't go outside because it's raining constantly. No, we've been sneaking out every time it stopped, so he's doing all right. Absolutely more flavor. Let's put our broiler on. Again, turn it on high, and you'll see that my rack, my oven rack, is almost all the way up at the top. Not quite at the top, but pretty close. And you can actually just go ahead, grab your corn cobs. Don't quite put it up there yet. We're going to add just a little bit of oil, and I'm just using a paper towel. Just a little bit of oil on the outside of the corn. What we're really trying to do here is char it. If you have access to a barbecue, which in this weather I don't, or if you want to do this over your burners, if you have a gas burner or something like that, feel free. The broiler, I just assume that everybody has an oven that has a broil setting, so that's why we're using that. And we want this to get kind of charred as quickly as possible. The longer you leave it in the oven, the more it'll dry out, and the less soft and kind of tasty it'll be in the soup. Give me 2 seconds here. I want to check our chicken. Just make sure we're not burning anything. Nope. And not quite ready to flip yet either. All right, good. So I'm just going to take these, put them right on the oven rack, right at the top. On mine, my burners are actually right above where I want to put my corn. So I'm just putting one on each side so that they get even charring, and we'll just make quarter turns as they kind of char up. Yes, making food is absolutely my love language. All right, so a lot of flooding. There is flooding in certain areas. Happily, in our area, there's not too much. Our kind of causeways and the drainage canals and stuff are full, and they're running really fast, which looks kind of cool, but it's not something that we're generally used to. So in this area, yeah, a little weird. Not a lot of flooding, at least nothing catastrophic here. My coworker, actually, one of my colleagues, lives in an area where it does flood in his yard, but so far he's been okay and hasn't had to like move or do anything too crazy. All right, let's go ahead and switch over here. You guys can see that I've got the chicken in here. I'm going to go ahead and flip it. You can see that we've got some nice browning going on these. Now we're going to brown the other side as well. We're not trying to cook the chicken through. We are just trying to get some color on it and on the bottom of the pan, so that when we add some of the other stuff to the pan, it deglazes and we get a lot of that extra chicken flavor, kind of the roasty chicken flavor into the soup. Apron game is on point. Thank you. Thank you so much. While we're letting that cook, I'm going to go ahead and dice up. It says like a medium or a large onion. I'm going to use 2 that are kind of small on the small end. We're also going to dice up our garlic. And we're going to give the cutting board cam a go this week and see how this works. So as we do with our onions, we always just kind of take off the tops. And then I usually just kind of set them over there. Let me set my paring knife out of the way. And then I always just have them vertically, like so. Now, you can absolutely just put your hand on top like this, and then just kind of cut, I'd say like 90% of the way through, but not all the way through. You can make 1 or 2 cuts, really, just kind of depending on how fine you want your onion to be. We're going about, 90% of the way through, not all the way through. This allows the onion to stay together, but you're dicing it. And then we're just going to come little bit by bit backwards, trying not to do that and cut the onion all the way through, but just kind of making it so that it's fanned out like so. And I'll just kind of reconstruct this. And then little bits that fall off, don't worry about them. We can dice them up later. And then on this, we're just going to cut straight down. Always roll your fingers back this way. You look at it like this, it's very, very difficult for you to cut yourself if you're using the back of your knuckle as kind of a guide for your knife. And always keep your thumb kind of tucked behind, because then again, it's really, really hard to catch the thumb with the knife unless it slips or something. There we are. And when I get kind of towards the end of the onion, I will just make a couple of extra cuts long ways like this. And then I'll just dice it all the way up to the root. Like so. And when you do it like that, you're left with very little waste. This is all I got. Just the root. And that goes into the compost. And then we just continue with the rest of our onions. There we go. And here we go. And when you hear the oil kind of stop sputtering at you, it's kind of getting a little bit less loud. You know that a lot of the moisture is been cooked out. And that means that it's going to start browning quicker. So I'm probably going to flip it again once I'm done dicing this onion here. Your dice on these guys doesn't have to be super fine because they're going to cook down in the soup. So if they're a little bit chunky, don't worry, it'll be fine. And again, all the way up to the root, and then that's all I got left for waste. So you get to use all of the onion instead of having a bunch left over. Take a look at the undersides of these chickens here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I want a little bit more browning on the skin side, so I'm going to go ahead and flip them back over. And you'll also notice that the chicken thighs have kind of shrunk just a little bit. So I'm going to kind of maneuver them so that they're in more contact with the bottom of the pan, more even contact. So hopefully I can get just a little bit more even browning on them. Honestly, the browning, we're not even going to see it because we're going to shred the chicken for the soup. But we want it for the bottom of the pan. We want all of that nice caramelization on the pan. So that when we deglaze it later with the onions and the garlic and some of the other stuff that we put in here, we get that flavor out of the chicken skin. All right, let's do onion number 2. Same thing, just going to cut it right in the middle. Maybe 1 or 2, I'm just going to do 1. And anytime you hear it surge, it's just a pocket of moisture that has just evaporated. Because it flash evaporates when it's in that hot oil. So if you ever hear something just kind of sizzling and all of a sudden it goes shh, it's because some kind of water somewhere, some moisture was released, usually in the skin or a pocket like in the actual meat, and it just evaporates almost instantly. So you get that added activity. That's what we'll call it. And a small onion, we'll just go ahead and get it diced up. There we go. And I'm not even going to bother cutting this one horizontally, don't need it. I'm just going to cut it vertically. Whoa, that skin is... Take off this top layer because it's a bit thick and leathery. I don't want to lose a finger tonight. But you'll notice that since I'm keeping kind of everything tucked back, even though my knife slipped, didn't catch anything. Awesome. Garlic's up next. I'm going to check the chicken really quick. We'll see what it looks like. And we'll see if we're ready to take it off. Oh, yeah. I like that. Woo! That is loud. All right, I'm going to grab my plate from the sink. We're going to take the chicken off and let it rest, and we're going to put our onions right in. So again, we're not trying to cook the thighs through, so if the thighs are not done yet, just keep them going for a bit, it's fine. But really what you're looking for is you can see some of the brown bits on the bottom of the pan here. That's what you want, because that's going to give you that flavor. And I'm just going to set this kind of out of the way. All right, now there is a bit extra oil in there, more oil than I wanted, so I am going to grab just a little ramekin of some kind and get rid of the extra oil because I don't want it to soak the onions. I do want enough oil in there to get them sizzling. Hopefully this doesn't break. There we go. So we're just going to keep about a tablespoon of oil in there. You can see how much fond is down there. All of those brown bits are called fond. And you can see that there's a ton of flavor in the pan. That's what we were going for with the chicken thighs, instead of using boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which you're not going to get that. In fact, you really can't do this kind of a sear-off with boneless, skinless, or you could do boneless, but not skinless, because there's no fat. You'll dry out and blister the chicken, the meat, and it'll just be dry and gross. I'm just going to be careful with this and set it over here. And then once it's cooled off, I always pour those into like a soda can or a beer can, or even that beer bottle. I'll go grab it. I'll pour the oil in there, so I'm not dumping it down my drain. All right, we'll get this back going. Knife safety is super important. Only variation of the onion cutting technique I learned. Love it. Awesome. Cool. So we're just going to go ahead and take our onions right into the pan. We still have about a tablespoon of oil in there, so if you dumped it all out, that's fine. Just add a little bit more. Just going to get all of these onions in there. And we're going to add a little bit of salt. And what's going to happen is the onions are going to release a bit of their moisture. And you're going to notice that a lot of that brown fond on the bottom of the pan is going to release and start mixing with the onions. And the onions are going to turn a really, really nice golden color very quickly. And that's exactly what we're looking for, because they're pulling up all of the flavor of the chicken. See, it's already kind of turning brown. You guys can't see it there. Let me see if this can see it a little bit better. Yeah, the onions are kind of already a little bit brown. And the more I shake them, the more that fond is coming off the bottom of the pan. Honestly, if you cook things well, I shouldn't say well, I should say the more skill you have at cooking and knowing what temperatures you want to be at, the less you have to actually scrub to clean your dishes, because you'll be doing all this deglazing stuff, and all of that stuff stuck to the bottom of your pots and pans will come right up into the food instead of being left on the pan. If you're noticing that you just have a bunch of stuff caked on your pans when you're done cooking, there's a good chance you're cooking a little bit too hot. So maybe turn down the heat just a bit, not a lot, just a bit, and see if that helps. There we go. Switch back over to here, because I want you to see that all of that fond has scraped off into the onions. There's some over here in the corner, just a little bit in the corner here. If I move into there with the onions, it'll come right off, because the onions are actually kind of deglazing it and melting it up off the bottom of the pan, the moisture from the onions. And the onions are a lovely golden color now. And that is all chicken. It's all chicken goober. It's great. Set that there. There we go. Hey, Mom, how's it going? I'm gonna add just a little bit of cracked black pepper in here. Oop. Almost out, so I'll have to fill that later. I'm going to turn this down now, like a medium. Because what I want to do is sweat the onions off, but I don't want to caramelize the onions. The brown is not from the onions caramelizing, the brown is from the chicken coming off the bottom of the pot. So that's what we want, but we don't want to caramelize them. It can actually produce a little bit of an acrid flavor in a soup like this, so we're not going to do that. We are going to switch over to our garlic. And my favorite way of chopping garlic is actually just to go like that and flatten it. And then use the same knife technique to cut it into little strips. And you'll actually notice that that produces pretty much ribbons, because you've already cracked it apart when you slam it down. So when you slice it, you get garlic ribbons. And you don't have to futz around with trying to like cut vertically, cut horizontally, and all that stuff. Just have garlic ribbons. We arrange them into one line. We kind of rotate them 90 degrees. And here we have a nice garlic dice. I used to be so against smashing garlic to get the skin off, because I thought you were ruining the garlic. And then I just started doing it myself because I was getting lazy. And I was like, oh, this isn't lazy. This is efficient. So, yeah. Kind of fun. All right, there we go. We got some minced garlic. We're not going to put this in yet. We're going to wait until our onions are almost done. And then we're going to toss in our garlic. While I'm waiting, I'm going to pull out my turkey stock. You'll notice that I'm keeping it cold in the fridge. The reason I'm doing that, if there's any fond left at the bottom of the pan, the cold liquid will help it release. If it's like room temperature or even warm, it won't help. It won't cause the steel to like make a microscopic contraction and release some of that fond. But if it's cold, it will. Here we go. Beautiful onions. You can see that we're getting a little bit of that onion fond on the bottom. So we're pretty much ready for the garlic. But I want to get my stock out first, because I don't want the garlic to burn. If the onions toast a little bit, it's not the end of the world. If the garlic burns, your soup will probably not taste that great. All right. Get this ready. And ladle. Perfect. So this is just a 1 cup ladle, 8 ounces. We're going to go ahead and grab our garlic, toss it in. Again, we don't want to toast it. We just want to kind of warm it up. Maybe a minute in there. And we're at like a medium to medium low heat. And while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to go check my corn. Don't forget your corn. And that looks charred, which is perfect. Just going to rotate it about a quarter turn on each side. And we'll come back in just a second. So this is all good. Before you ladle your stock into your pot, if you have cumin and you want to use cumin, we're going to go ahead and put in a tablespoon of it right now. If you don't worry about it. Now, I have a teaspoon measure because my tablespoon, even though I've got a skinny end on my tablespoon, fat end for like scooping into wide jars, skinny end for little jars, tablespoon's still too wide. Won't go into the cumin jar. So I'm just going to do 3 teaspoons, which is a tablespoon. And I'm basically just going to stir it through, which will get it toasted just enough. And then I will ladle this in. So let's go ahead and get that stirred in. Perfect. And place some musical cutting board here. We're going with a quart, which is 4 cups. One, 2, 3, 4. All right. Get our stock back in the fridge. Now, your corn will also take less time to char, less time to, I guess char is the right word. It'll take less time once it's already warm because it's been in the oven. So now we just got to keep checking it a little bit more often. Put our ladle over there so we can rinse it and give this a good stir. I'm scraping the spatula along the bottom just to release any of that fond that's down there. And just doing it really gently. All right, there we go. Let's check our corn again. It's getting there. Let me give it just another couple minutes. So at this point, we want to go ahead and add our tomato sauce. And what I'm going to do is actually sneak over here and grab my ladle. I'm going to scoop out just a bit of the broth into the sauce can. Because now I can swirl it and get all of the tomato sauce out. And then we're also going to get our beans and our enchilada sauce. Now, I'm using a hot enchilada sauce. If you don't have a hot enchilada sauce, mild is fine. Or if you don't like hot food, mild is fine. I also have a recipe for enchilada sauce. We made chicken enchiladas back, I think, in the first year that we were doing this, 2020. And we made a homemade enchilada sauce for the chicken enchiladas. So you can always go back and look at that recipe. It's not on the new channel yet. It's still on my old channel. So if you want to go and look at it there, you can go and find it. I'm in the process of moving all those old videos over. So I've got 60-something videos to move. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm trying to get it done as quickly as I can. As I move the videos over, I'm also putting the recipes and everything on the website. So if you haven't been to the website yet, cookalong.live is the website address. All the recipes that I've been cooking this year are there, as well as some of the older ones that I started with. So you can get the recipes. You don't have to go on Instagram and look through my feed to find all the ingredients. All the ingredients are there. The instructions are there. If you don't want to watch the video, that's great. Everything is right there. And if you want to jump into the video just to kind of see how I'm doing stuff, the recordings are there as well. So that's that. You can also follow me on Instagram, cookalong.live. You can follow me on TikTok, cookalong.live. On Facebook, it's Cookalong Livestream because somebody actually has an account, cookalong.live, with no posts. That was started right around the same time I started, but they just never made anything out of it. So trying to get that released. Not sure it ever will. It's all good. All right, let's rotate our corn. Another quarter turn. So roasting the corn is another change that I made. The original recipe just wanted canned corn. Canned corn is fine. However, if we add that little char to it, we get that roasty, charry corn flavor. If you don't like that charred flavor, you don't have to roast the corn. think I said that at the beginning. If I forgot to, I'm sorry. But you can just cut the corn off of the cob or get canned corn if that's something that tastes better to you. Personally, I love roasty corn, so that's why we're doing it this way. Again, adds just a little bit of a different dimension to the flavor profile of the soup. So we're going to get our enchilada sauce in, then we're going to drain our beans. Yes, it does smell yummy, doesn't it, Hobbit? Yeah, the enchilada sauce is kind of fun. I didn't want to take the time to do it today. I figured I'm already kind of elevating this just a bit with like the roasted corn and the seared off chicken. I didn't want to overdo it. But if you want to make the enchilada sauce in advance, or if you happen to have made some for enchiladas and now you're making an enchilada soup, you got plenty there. Go for it. It'll taste just as good. Got our enchilada sauce in there. And our tomato sauce. We're going to go ahead and drain our black beans. Come over to the sink with me. All right. So, is anybody having any trouble keeping up? I know I tend to go a little bit fast, so I'm trying to slow down just a little bit. Let me know how you guys are doing in the chat so I can see if I need to adjust or not. And again, I'm just rinsing out the can to get all of the beans out of it, and then I'm just going to rinse the beans out in the colander that I have here, the little strainer. And then a quick pro tip, these always keep dripping, so this will keep them from dripping on your floor. Let's come back here. Hi, how's it going, everybody? All right, beans are ready. They're going to go right in. And then we can take all of this and put it in the sink. All right, let's check on our corn. How you looking, corn? It's getting there. So we're going to bring this up to a boil or up to a simmer, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to give me just a second to go and check the instructions just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. I don't think I am. I always write down my version just to make sure I don't miss anything, because sometimes the instructions, even on the whatever site I find a recipe on and then I modify it, sometimes my version is so different than what they have, there's no way I would remember it. Cumin, black beans, cool. Got the corn, and if you have any cayenne pepper and you want to add a dash, go for it. Almost forgot the cayenne. I like things a little bit spicy, so I'm probably going to add a 1/4 teaspoon. If you don't like things that spicy, if you're using a spicy enchilada sauce, you may even just omit the cayenne. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up to a simmer before I add my chicken breasts back in. Chicken breasts and then the corn are the next steps to go back into the soup. We're just going to go ahead and keep our workstation a little bit clean here. Clean off our knife. 2 people, but we're caught up. Great. Good to know, Hobbit. Moving at a good pace. We've got 2 people as well. Definitely, absolutely it does. It 100% does. Enchilada sauce. Yep, okay, cool. Takes 2 of us to keep up. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I tend to kind of rush through these things just a bit. All right, so we're waiting on this to come up to a boil. I just turned up the heat just to get it kind of going. I'm still thinking about my corn in the background because I don't want it to burn. My kitchen smells like a combination of enchiladas and corn. It's actually pretty cool. A little bit of sweet from the corn and enchilada. So keep this kind of going. Where do those chicken breasts magically appear from? Did I say chicken breasts? I meant chicken thighs, the ones that we browned off earlier. So if I said the wrong word, sorry, it happens. Take a breath, take a breather, take a sip of whatever you're drinking. All right. That's looking good. I'm going to check on the corn real quick. You know what? I'm actually pretty happy with that because I've got some really burned sides and I've got some less burned sides. So that'll kind of average out, I think. Let's go ahead and pull these guys out. Got some nice roasted corn here. You can see that, like, good little rainbow of corn. Same on this one. I love it. That's actually perfect for me. If you want to let it go a little bit longer, fine. Let it go a little bit longer. It's your corn. The corn is hot, so don't grab the corn with your fingers. Not that I've ever made that mistake in my life. I thought I had some corn tongs, but I guess I don't. So I'm just going to use a fork. No, or I'm not. There we go. Just be careful. And I'm just going to slice my corn off of the cob. Rotate just a bit. I'm going to say like a quarter turn. Actually, more like an eighth of a turn. If you have corn tongs, those little tines that you can stick in each end to kind of hold it, those would probably work better. But I don't know where mine went. So I'm just going to use a fork. There we go. All the corn is cut off. We're starting to simmer over there too, which is perfect timing. Get that over there. And corn number 2. Same thing. Just want to shave off all of the little corn kernels from the cob. And that'll give us a lovely roasty corn flavor in the soup. All right. Soup's bubbling. I'm going to go ahead and... Hey, Katie, how's it going? Long time no see. Welcome. Give this a stir just to make sure nothing's burning on the bottom. It is a liquid, it is a soup, and it can still burn, so be aware of that. There we go. And I'm going to turn this down to, I'm going to say a medium because I want it to simmer. I don't want it to be boiling. I don't want a rolling boil or anything like that. So I do want it just simmering. It will, as the rest of the soup heats up, start boiling more and more, and I'll have to keep turning the temperature down until it's all heated evenly. It's kind of a weird thing, but when you have something cooking from the bottom heats up, and you see the bubbles, but all the soup on the outside isn't quite there yet. So if you've ever had a situation where you like set something perfectly and then walked away and then you came back and it was like boiling over, that's probably why. The rest of the liquid eventually caught up and everything was at boiling temperature, and then it really starts rolling. So you just have to kind of keep an eye on it, and it's actually going a little bit faster already, so I'm just going to turn this down a bit. And if you have a thing like mine, like my induction stove, I guess you guys can't see the temperature on it. I can actually set it to a temperature. So this is a really cool little feature because if I go to 220, which is the boiling point of water, guess what happens? Things tend to simmer right at a simmer. The problem is if the entire bowl, the entire cooking vessel isn't at that temperature yet, it'll never get there because at that point it's incrementally getting so, it's like calculus where you're getting so close to the bound but it never quite gets there because it's not quite enough energy. So you got to start a little higher and then back it off. And let me take off my nerd glasses here and put them away. And we're just going to get the corn in the soup. How does that sound? So go ahead and grab your corn, scoop it up. Careful if it's still hot. Once you take it off the cob, it should cool down pretty quickly, but it could still be a little bit warm. We're going to go ahead and add it to the soup. And there we go. First swoop. Clean off the knife, clean off the cutting board. I do have cloth towels. I don't always use paper towels, but they're at the point that they need to be replaced, and I keep forgetting to order some new ones from Amazon, so unfortunately I'm using a little bit more paper than I usually use. Cool, we got that going. We're gonna go ahead and put our chicken back in, as well as any juices that are on the plate. So if I kind of tilt this, you'll see that there is cooking juices from the chicken. We're going to pour those in once we put the thighs in. And we're going to put them in totally submerged. Like so. There we go. And then cooking juices, it's just more chicken flavor. Maybe a little bit of the oil from the pan when we were searing them off, but you're just getting as much chicken flavor into the soup as you can. All right. Give this just a real quick stir. You'll notice that it stopped simmering because I just added things that were not as hot as the soup back to the soup, which cooled it down just a bit, just enough to make it stop simmering. But it's really quickly coming right back up to the simmer. Perfect. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. And this is going to cook for about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how long it takes the chicken to cook through. So if you have like huge Mondo chicken thighs, it might take a little bit longer. If you have regular sized thighs, it's about 25 minutes. And if it cooks a little bit too long, it's not the end of the world. So at this point, we're going to make our guacamole. So, got all my guacamole ingredients here. I've got 5 avocados because I had 5, and I'm leaving tomorrow for a work trip, so I'm not going to be able to use it. So I'm just going to turn it into guacamole so it doesn't go bad on. And grab a bowl. So my favorite way to do avocados is to take a knife, cut in. There's always a pit in the middle of an avocado. Sometimes it's small, so be careful. But I just cut straight down the middle. You'll generally hit the pit. This also avoids accidentally going through if you don't hit a pit, and maybe cutting yourself if you use your hand. See my hand right underneath the knife? Not a good thing. But if I do this and I cut into the pit, now I can roll the avocado along the cutting board. And sometimes the pit just comes right out with the pressure of the knife. Now, again, like I said earlier, I used to hate smashing garlic. I used to hate doing this. I always did the hand thing until one of my friends, Etienne, who is not on the stream right now, but, oh yeah, he is. Hey, Etienne, what's up? So, Etienne's the one who said you should do it that way so you don't cut yourself. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it that way. And then I thought about it and I was like, wow, he's actually really smart. And I should probably follow his advice. But I'll never tell him that I thought that. And that's basically what I'm going to do with all of these avocados. I'm just going to cut in, roll it along the cutting board. If it doesn't split, if you roll it or if you cut it and it's still together, you can just take it, turn it 90 degrees, and you almost kind of open it like a lock. It's super nice. And then same thing to get the pits out on the cutting board. Just kind of snap down, and then you can rotate it. Pits come right off, and then you can pinch the pit off of the front of the knife. And in that way, you will not injure yourself. And we'll just keep going, down, roll forward, roll forward. There we go. Up. Now on this one, that's a nice looking pit, so I'm actually going to set it aside. It's covered in avocado, but I can see that it's like it's a pretty pit. It's a vanity thing. When you're plating the guacamole, you can make it look nice with a good avocado pit. If you find one out of the avocados that you're cutting, that looks nice. And that's the one that I'm going to well, hopefully I find a better one, but that's the one I'm going to use for now. Let's see. Oh, here's the one I'm going to use because this is a pretty one that's not sticking to the avocado meat. There we go. And that's really what I do. If I find something that's better than what I already have, I just toss the one that I already have and use the better one. It's an avocado eat avocado world out there. All right. I'm actually surprised I found any avocados because usually this time of the year isn't the best. Now what I like to use is a butter knife. And in this way, I can actually do this to cut the avocado into just little square segments. And even if it goes through the avocado skin, a butter knife is very unlikely to cut me with the amount of pressure that I'm using. So I'm just kind of pre-gaming the avocado before I use a potato masher to mash it. And I'm going to do it step by step, so I'm only doing one thing at a time because it tends to be more efficient, less multitasking. Your brain can focus on one set of movements at a time instead of switching from this to scooping them into the bowl, back to this, back to scooping them into the bowl. Just focus on the one thing, get it done, move on to the next. There we go. Last avocado. And any little bits that fall off are up for grabs. Then I take a spoon. Why a spoon, cousin? Because it's dull, you idiot. It'll hurt more. And just scoop out the avocados. Anybody who doesn't get that reference, it's from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The incredible Severus Snape, Alan Rickman. Great performance. We're just going to scoop all the avocados in here. Now this works as a great topping to the chicken enchilada soup, or if you want, you can just eat it with potato chips. Just gives you another thing to dip and kind of enjoy while you're enjoying the soup. Maybe while you're waiting for the soup to cool, you can eat some avocado, eat some guacamole. All right. I like to also add my lime or lemon, whatever you want to use. I like green for green. Lime will give the guacamole a little bit of a sweet flavor, whereas lemon will give it more of a tangy, sharp citrus flavor. So use whichever one you like, and I'll switch between the two depending on how I feel. For kind of a really rich soup like this, I like the sweet. If I'm just doing it for tacos, I usually use lemon because I like the tang. And I really don't use a full lime. Yikes! I'll usually just use a half a lime, mash it up, and then see how it tastes, and then add more if I need to. I actually found out that acid is the enemy of avocados. If you add a ton of acid, my conventional thinking was that similar to, let's say, an artichoke, it stops it from oxidizing it. It stops it from oxidizing. It keeps it from going brown. Apparently, it's not the case with avocados. If you add a bunch of citrus, too much citrus, it will actually brown faster. So the key to keeping a green guacamole is not adding as much citrus as you think. And I've tested it a couple of times, and my guacamole tends to last a couple of extra days now, which I don't have like any kind of a professional study going or anything, but based on my experience, it seems that is actually correct. And I also add my garlic. Now what I'm doing here is I'm adding all of the things that I want to be mashed into the avocado, into the guacamole. So the lime juice will help get it creamy. The garlic we're crushing anyway, so it'll just help incorporate it that much more. I don't want to add my tomatoes or my cilantro or my green onions yet, because I don't want them to be mushed. Give it just a couple of squishes. And now I'm going to add some salt. You may need to add more salt than you think, but always start with less than you want, because it's really hard to take the salty flavor out of guacamole if you overdo it. And we're just going to go ahead and do a little mashy mash. Get it as smooth as you like. I like it slightly chunky. Something like that. I'll set this over in the sink. And now we'll put this on the side just for now. Not going to taste it yet. I'm going to wait till I add everything else. I've already added a little bit of salt. We'll see how it ends up later. Now for my tomatoes, again, I'm just going to go ahead and make all of my cuts first. Then I'm going to worry about dicing it. So I quarter it. I remove the seeds. There's no point to put the seeds in. They're just goo. No nutritional value. No flavor. Just makes it wet. So just get rid of the seeds. Like so. I guess I can switch over here. There we go. And kind of show you that I usually start at the kind of point end, not the root end. And I usually just kind of cut right up along. I use the knife to hold the tomato flat, and then I just slide it backwards. And then I cut off right at the root. And that way I get all of the seeds out and all of this goo. But I still have the tomato flesh that I can use and dice and do whatever with. This also makes it lay down flat. It's all better. I like to cut my tomatoes about 1/4 inch for guacamole because I want them to be seen. I don't want them to just kind of disappear. And again, I'm doing the whole thing where I'm using my knuckle as a guide and just going down along my knuckle, keeping my thumb behind all the rest of my fingers. And now I can just dicey dice. There we go. Nice diced tomato. Move that bowl here and get our tomatoes in. We got about 10 minutes left on our soup. Let's go ahead and do our green onions. Now there's a couple of different ways to do green onions. If you want them to completely disintegrate and not be findable, in the guacamole or in whatever you're making. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out how to do this for the camera. Cut them in half first. Like so. And then lay them on top of each other. This makes it so that they don't roll around all over your cutting board. It also allows you to cut very, very thin pieces of green onion. So it just kind of vanishes into whatever you're putting it into. Now, in order to do that, just make sure that you position it so that the stems, or stem, or whatever, are layered on top of each other. So not like this, where I've got a split going down the middle, because then I'll just cut it in half down here. But like this, so that they're on top of each other. So that when I cut down the length of it, I'm actually splitting all the way up the stem, and I've got two halves of a green onion. It's an extra step that takes 5 seconds, but it does make dicing these, or slicing them super thin, much easier. And in my opinion, actually makes it go a bit faster. There we go. And then it doesn't matter what side you start on when you're dicing here. Green end, white end, all the same. You'll notice my onions are just chopping and staying where they chop. They're not rolling all over the place as they sometimes tend to do. The other benefit to doing it this way is sometimes green onions have a lot of grit in them. I don't know if you guys have ever had a green onion where it's been like impossible to wash it. But if you split it in half like that, you can do a real quick inspection down the length of the inside of the green onion and rinse out any that are overly dirty or overly gritty. When I make tabbouleh, which is one of my favorite things to make, sometimes you can tell if the restaurant hasn't properly washed their green onions or hasn't gone through and thoroughly inspected them, because as you take a bite, you taste sand. Happens to me when I make my own tabbouleh sometimes. That's a way to kind of avoid that. I'm gonna get our green onions in here. And then last but not least, and omittable if you don't like it, cilantro. I love cilantro, so I've got about a 1/4 cup of cilantro there. You can add more, you can add less. It's up to you. Your guacamole. I just kind of bunch it up, and I pick off the leaves only. With cilantro, it's not as big of a deal as with parsley, but I actually find that it's a little bit easier to kind of bunch it together when you don't have the stalks kind of pushing their way out. You just have the leaves, you can kind of make a clump and just chop through it. Make the best guacamole. Yeah, you were saying that, Laura. Hey, Ryan, what's up, man? Good to see you. For avocado tip, yep. Good tip. Oh yeah, absolutely. I love helping people cook and helping people in general, and I don't like it when people injure themselves. It makes me sad. All right, so got a tomato sneaking around on the bottom of this bowl. Go ahead and get all of our cilantro in there. Now we can see what our guacamole looks like from the top. We've seasoned it just when we crushed the avocado. We haven't seasoned it since. I'm going to go ahead and just take a spoon, mix it through, and then we'll give it a taste and see if we need to adjust salt, maybe add a little bit more lime juice. It's really just, at this point, a taste thing. We've added the ingredients, and now we're just fine-tuning it. And pretty good timing, too. Another 5 minutes, and we should be able to take our chicken out to shred it. Can definitely use more salt. I'm happy with the hint of lime. But again, if you're not and you want to add more lime juice, it's your guacamole, so go for it. Again, just a little bit more salt. Avocado tends to love salt to a point, and then it really hates salt. And then all you taste is salt. So don't be afraid to add more salt than you think you should to make it taste right. But be careful once it starts getting close to where the right point is, because if you go over, it is over. It's a bad thing. All right. There we go. That's a good guacamole. I don't have a bowl cam, so I'm just going to kind of walk around here, grab a bowl. And come back. Don't worry, if you guys watch my other channel where I do a lot of aviation stuff, at some point I'll probably have 20 cameras in this place, and you'll be able to see everything I do. Now, another pro tip, I shouldn't have done this with a spoon. I just licked the spoon. I should have used a spatula, because the spatula will clean the sides like so. Let's get this going again. It auto shuts off after about an hour, and you can get all of your guacamole out of the bowl. There we go. Tasty guac. Mostly clean bowl. Just need to rinse it really. And it's good. And I'll turn my oven light off. Now, I know paper towel, I'm so sorry. Easiest way to clean any of the gunk off of a seed, paper towel. Quite honestly. It grabs the avocado and just kind of strips it off. And you have a totally clean pit. So if you ever want something that's super presentable, paper towels are the key. And then I usually try to put it like somewhere in a third of an edge. So like here's the middle, it's about a third that way, there's about a third this way, just to kind of give it a little bit of character. And this is where I will go and find some cilantro with a stem. Because what I can do is find a nice leaf or two with a good stem. Like let's say this one. I'll break it off about here. So I've got a good stem. And I can find one with some really big leaves on it. No, no, no. Oop, broke it. All right, we'll do these two. Now I can take the stem and I can slide it in kind of underneath and behind the seed. And I can give it a little cilantro leaf umbrella. And in this case, the stems are a little long, so I'll shorten them just a bit. All I got to do is pinch. And then there we go. And then pinch. And then there we go. Perfect. One last thing you can do with your guacamole, just to give it that extra bit of contrast. Either cayenne pepper, or smoked paprika, or regular paprika. You just want a dash of red on the top. This also works really well for hummus. Just gives it a little bit of contrast on the top. Oh, come on. This is where I pour the entire thing of cayenne pepper onto my guacamole, but that's fine. That is easily fixable, like so. Aha! No one will ever know. Except y'all. All right, let's switch over to the camera here. I'm going to just wipe off the inside of the bowl where I goobered the guac. And there you go. Beautiful guacamole. Looks fun. It's got that little bit of contrast. The seed, the cilantro gives it a little bit of a fun look. And we're done with our guacamole. I'm gonna set this aside. And gonna clean off my board. All right, I'm gonna rinse my knife off really quick, and then we're gonna come over and do a little bit more with our chicken enchilada soup. Should be done very shortly. All right, there's the knife. I'm taking my bowl from my guacamole, and I'm just gonna rinse it out. I'm actually gonna use the spatula to scrape down the sides. Don't care about this. I'm gonna leave that over here at the sink. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my chicken, the thighs, into the bowl. Clean knife, clean bowl. Cayenne pepper in the back of my throat. And let's just do that. All right, cool. So, got my bowl. I'm gonna fish out my chicken thighs. So here's 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna try and leave everything that's not chicken in the soup. It's not always practical, so don't worry too much if you pick some stuff up, but I'm gonna try and get these guys out. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna mess up my cutting board. Before I mess up my cutting board, I'm gonna grab my cream cheese. We're gonna put this into the soup. We want this to melt. It's going to make this creamy. It's also gonna thicken it up a bit. And yes, it is a full block of cream cheese. You can take comfort in the fact that this is comfort food. And that you're not eating the entire bowl at once. So you're only going to get a bit of cream cheese with each bowl of soup that you serve yourself. It's my way of trying to make you feel better about it. I'm going to take my chicken, put it on the cutting board, and I'm just going to let the cream cheese hang out in there. I want it to melt so that when I mix it up, it incorporates better. I'm just going to take the skin off. We're done with the skin. It gave us all of its flavor. It gave us all of its color. We're done. We're pulling it off. And if there's any like weird fatty bits, I'm going to take those off too. I just don't like them. If you're fine with them, great. You do you. I'm just going to peel the skins off. I'm trying not to touch the chicken because it's hot, straight out of a boiling pot of soup. But be careful. Maybe use a fork. Maybe use 2 sets of tongs. All right. Now I'm just going to try and peel off as much chicken from the bone as I can without touching the chicken. And I'm going to put it into the bowl. And what this is going to do is it's going to cool it off a lot quicker than if I leave it on the bone. Because I want to shred this, but I don't want to wait 2 hours for it to cool before I can handle it. So I am just going to pull it off of the thigh, the bone. If there's any pieces that you're a little bit suspect about, maybe give them a feel. But just get as much of the meat off as you can. Don't worry about anything that's on the cutting board. We can scrape it off when we're done with our knife. Just get it off the bone, get it into the bowl. It'll cool like 20 times faster that way. That was a totally non-scientific percentage, by the way. The good thing about thighs is there's only one bone. So if you know where the bone is, you just peel the chicken off right around it. Comes right off. If you want, after you peel the big pieces of meat off, you can leave the bones because they'll also cool down a lot faster now that they're not surrounded by insulation. And then you can go in and, like, you know, pick off the little bits. I'm not super concerned about that. But again, your mileage may vary. Go. I'll just switch to here, I think. So again, just grabbing. I know that the bone is basically going from here to here, so I can just peel right around that and get the chicken into the bowl. Now what I'm left with is the bone, maybe a little bit of extra chicken. If you want to wait for it to cool down, you can. I'm not going to worry too much about it. And then same, I just find the bone. It's going from here to here. I'm going to peel around it. And just be careful because it's hot. There we go. There we go. All right, everybody still with me? Golden ratio, avo seed placement, artiste. Just saying he's going to drop that whole thing in there. Yep. That's absolutely what I was going to do. The cheese must flow. Bad Dune reference. All right. Anybody burn themselves? If so, I'm sorry. But it is a hazard of making awesome food. I'm just going to let it kind of sit and chill, literally, cool down just a bit. And there's a couple of different ways you can shred this. You can get a hand mixer. Like one of the mixers, you know, the handheld cake mixers. And it will shred this so quickly that you could just do that. I don't have one of those. I do have a hand immersion blender, and it has a whisk attachment. Unfortunately, the whisk doesn't quite work the same way that 2 blender heads going together do. So, you can also use 2 forks. And with the 2 forks, you just kind of go in and almost just scrape apart like a salad, and things will shred. Takes a little bit of time, but it works. Absolutely works. This is actually the method that I'm going to do because it's what I got. The last method is you wait for the chicken to cool almost completely, and then you just use your hands to tear it apart. Whichever one works for you is the one that you want to do. Unless somebody has any tips that I can use on stream right now, that is not one of those 3. Those are the only 3 that I know of. And rather than trying to pull the chicken apart, because I know when I first started trying to shred chicken, I would take a chicken breast and I would do this and kind of like try and pull it apart like this. Instead of going like that, make sure you can figure out which direction the grain is going. In this case, the chicken is separating this way, so the grain is running this way. If I go like this and then run the fork tines through it with the grain, it shreds it right up. So if you're using the fork method, just make sure you're doing it with the grain, not against the grain, because it'll be a lot quicker and you'll get nice ribbons of chicken as opposed to chunks. I'm just going to do that on the cutting board for now. There we go. Add a little bit of fat that I just binned. And you can see that here I've got a little bit of cartilage. Same thing. I'm just going to go right through it. I'm just going to pop it off. If that's something that you enjoy, it's all on you. Enjoy it. I am not a fan, so for my soup, it doesn't make the cut. All right. We've got some really nice shredded chicken here. We're just going to keep going until it's all shredded. And again, if you go with the grain, it tends to go a bit quicker and give you a much nicer shred. I've also seen people get those like pulled pork claws. I think they're a bit too big for chicken. But if you have good luck with them, or if you have a good experience with them, go do it. Now you should be able to basically smell the nice roasty aroma of the soup. And that's what we got going on over there. I'm actually going to grab a whisk. And we're going to start kind of breaking up the cream cheese and mixing it through. And you'll notice that now it went from a nice kind of deep red to an orangey color. Almost like a cream of tomato or a cream soup. And you do want to stir this a bit aggressively because the cream cheese is going to want to fragment into little bits and not incorporate. So just stir it aggressively. I'm not going to say don't go crazy, but we don't need to immersion blend this because we want to taste the corn, we want to taste the beans, we want to actually have the texture of those in there as well. So just give it a good stir. A good healthy stir. And then I'll just leave it there to keep simmering while I continue with my chicken. I do want to break up the cheese sometime before I finish the chicken, because as it cooks and as it continues to melt, those smaller pieces will break down and become homogeneous with the rest of the soup. Chicken is definitely not done. Okay, if the chicken isn't done yet, let it cook for a little bit longer. Were they Mondo-sized thighs? Because that can happen if you have super huge thighs. But it should take somewhere between like 20 and 40 minutes to cook all the way through, if you're cooking it at a simmer. I'm just going to keep grabbing little chickens and shreddy, shreddy, shreddy. And also, if you're using like small thighs, super small thighs, you may want to get 6 of them instead of the 4. I'm happy with the amount of chicken that I'm going to end up having in my soup. Like, this looks like a good amount for the amount of liquid that I have. But if you're looking at your chicken and you're just like, wow, this is not enough, just add a couple the next time you make it. Or just make sure you're keeping an eye on the size of the product that you're buying. And if they're a little bit on the small side, you know, grab a couple more. And if they're a little bit on the large side, maybe you don't want that much, because maybe you'll just over chicken your soup. And that's not a good thing either. Now, the great thing with having the avocado done, or the guacamole done, I should say, is that if you're just doing this at your home on your own, you could be munching on guacamole while you're doing this. Or if you have a couple of friends over and they're waiting for the soup to be done, or significant other and they're waiting for the soup to be done, man, they got snacks. They'll probably be happy. Let's see. And at this point, all of the chicken in my bowl is basically cooled down to the point where I can handle it. Again, if it was still on the bone, this would still be steaming, because the bone holds a lot of heat. The meat holds a lot of heat and kind of insulates the bone from cooling down. So by just tearing it straight off the bone, you cool it down quite a bit. And we're going to put it back in the soup, and we're going to warm it back up before we serve it. But if you ever want to shred chicken thighs, get them off the bone as quickly as you can. There we go. And also, you can really just shred this down as much as you want. If you like chunky chicken in your soup, you don't have to shred it at all. You can just cut it up. You can dice it into whatever, you know, size you want. Personally, I tend to like shred it a little bit more, but it's really up to you. Really good friend of mine a long time ago would not eat certain things if it didn't have shredded chicken in it. And before I realized that you had to take the chicken off of the bone or whatever, off of the bone, whatever meat you're cooking off of a bone to kind of cool it down, if I was in a hurry or if I was hungry, I'd just be like, dang it, we're just going to dice this chicken up. And she'd be like, no, shred it. So I've since learned how to shred chicken. I don't know if there's an efficient way to do it, but as efficiently as possible. And the soup's over there simmering. It looks yummy and creamy. As soon as we're done with this chicken, we'll put it in and pretty much be done. There are some toppings you can do with the soup. I'll show you how to very quickly make some homemade tortilla strips, crunchy tortilla strips. It's very, very easy. There we go. Almost done here. And then we'll put a couple of other things in there as well. I like to kind of put, just again for aesthetic purposes, because if stuff looks good, it's going to taste better. I like to put a couple of slices of avocado, even if I put some guacamole on it, because I think the full slice of an avocado just brings something. I like to dice some cilantro, sprinkle it on the top. Again, if you're not a fan of cilantro, don't worry about it. Just leave it off. But it is something I enjoy, so I do. And then some queso fresco or cotija, if that's what you got. Any kind of the white crumbly Mexican cheese is awesome on this. You could put some sour cream on if you want. I think with the cream cheese, you've already kind of got that cream flavor. So adding a bit of sour cream, it might be a little bit over the top. But if it's a flavor you like, go for it. And don't look at the nutrition facts. All right. A couple more pieces here. And our soup will be done. Chicken tastes good. So full on guac. Yep. That's also one of the double-edged swords, because you can absolutely fill up on the appetizer. Thighs had the backs on them. Oh, okay. Yep, that'll take a little bit longer. The shreds. Yeah. Did I miss the beans going in? Yes, you did. The beans went in quite a bit earlier. The good thing is they don't need to cook, so you don't have to worry about it. If you missed them and you want to put them in now, go for it. Just heat them up with the chicken, the shredded chicken, and they will be just fine. The beans go in with right after all of the tomato stuff. So the enchilada sauce, the tomato sauce, the chicken broth, the beans went in right around there. But they don't really add much flavor. Like they don't add flavor to the soup. They're just there, and you're just making sure that they're cooked and soft. But if they're canned beans, they're going to be cooked and soft anyway, so there's not really you didn't make a mistake. Don't worry about it. We're going to go ahead and add our shredded chicken back into the soup and stir it through. If you notice any little clumps of cream cheese as you're kind of stirring it through, maybe pull your whisk out and give it a quick whisk and see if you can kind of break some of those up. But your cream cheese should be more or less incorporated at the moment. There we go. Switch for the guac and the cayenne, so I will go ahead and do a stir. I'm going to give this a real quick taste, and if I need to, adjust for seasoning. Grab a bit of chicken, maybe a bit of bean and some corn. So there we go for the bite. That is really good. I don't think it needs anything. I think it's salted fine. One thing we are going to add to it before we're done, the other half of the lime that you used for your guacamole, or if you did use the whole lime, cut another lime in half and use a half for this. We're just going to spritz that in here. It adds just a bit of tartness and a little bit of an additional sweetness in there. Just that little bit of citrus. There we go. And again, I'm sorry, paper towels. Joff is probably having a conniption fit at his house. Okay, done with that. Wipe this off. We can wipe this off. I'll keep that there so I can taste with it. Clean off the knife, dry off the cutting board. And we are almost done. Almost. Bear with me for just another couple of minutes. We'll get this plated up. We'll make some tortilla strips. We'll get this plated up. And then it's dinner time. All right, so this is done. The soup is basically done. All we're doing is keeping it warm while we do our tortilla strips. I'm going to take it over to my gas stove, just set it up so that it's just kind of simmering over there, and we will come back to it once we're done with our tortilla strips. I'm just going to set it here. Turn this down. I know about what setting I need for it to simmer, so I'm just going to let it kind of go, set it to simmer, and we're going to go and make our tortilla strips. All right, so tortilla strips. Grab the corn tortillas that you had. Let's stop that. And grab a small pan. You can also do this in like a deep dish pan if you want. I don't like using that much oil because that's what we're using is oil. We're going to take our corn tortillas and we're going to cut them into thirds. Like so. And like so. Just like Ryan said earlier, golden ratio. We're also going to rotate them 90 degrees like so, and we're going to cut them in half. Like this. Now all of these like triangle pieces, we're going to stack on top of each other so that they all face the same direction. Like this. And we're going to take the side that was like, this is where the half cut was, so it's the longer side. We're going to take that and that's where we're going to cut. The two middle sections here, we're again going to just kind of fold them on top of each other. So these are the directions we're going to cut all of these. So this is the long side. This is where the halfway cut was. And these are the two center pieces, basically, that we just folded on top of each other. And we're also going to, cut them the long way. This way we get strips that are more or less all even length. And they just kind of taper down a little bit, as opposed to being all kinds of random, wonky, wacky sizes. Paper towels are wasteful. I mean, if you want to be environmentally conscious. I tend to, and I tend to go through a lot of towels. But I usually have cloth ones for just kind of like general cleanup. And then they go into my wash totally separate from everything with bleach on a sanitized cycle. So I can reuse them. I'm not, filling up a landfill with a bunch of paper that's got a bunch of goober on it. It's just a little bit more not health conscious, eco-friendly. But at the moment, I'm out of the cloth towels. I got to order some more. So here we go. I want to cut these down to about 1/8 of an inch. I want them thin. And I'm just going to cut the middle ones first. Like so. We got a little bundle of tortilla. I'm going to do the same thing with these. Again, we're cutting the longer side so that we have as even lengths as we can get. I know that these curved ones will taper down just a bit. That's fine. There we go. And the super small ones, it's up to you whether you want to use them. If you don't want to use them, just eat them because they're tasty. I do like using them, so I'm going to go ahead and add them to my stack o tortilla. And so let's go ahead and switch here. So you can see that these are just very, very small, thinly cut tortilla strips. All of them are about the same length and the same thickness, and that's what you're looking for. except for the offshoots like this, which, again, you can eat them. We're going to go back up here. We're going to add a little bit of oil to our pan. We want enough to cover the bottom of the pan, and you want to use a neutral oil. And the only thing that I mean by that is you want something that doesn't have flavor. If I toast these in olive oil, they're going to taste like olives, and that's not really what I want going into my soup. So I'm just going to use vegetable oil, which has no flavor. You can use peanut oil, avocado oil, safflower oil, anything that is really, really light on taste. Extra light virgin or extra light olive oil works because there's not much flavor. You do want the oil to cover the bottom of the pan. You don't have to have like an inch of oil in there though, but you do want enough to cover the bottom of the pan. We're going to turn this to medium-high. And we're just going to kind of swirl it around and just make sure that the whole bottom is coated. So full on guac, this shreds. Did I miss the beans going in? Yep. What's wrong with the paper towels? Okay. You just somehow turned on some song called The Golden Ratio on our Alexa. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope it was not... I hope the song was appropriate. I'll just say that. So I want the oil to be hot before I add anything to it. While I'm waiting for it to heat up, I'm actually going to grab... I have a little sheet pan here. And yes, I'm sorry, more paper towels. I can feel the glare from Joff through the internet. The soup will keep. That's a great question. My mom's asking, what am I going to do with all of that soup if I'm going out of town tomorrow? I'm only going to be gone a couple of days for a work thing. The soup will be fine, and when I come back, I'll probably eat most of it or take it to work because I've got a lot of people at work who love my cooking too. But if you're asking if you can come over and help me eat all of the soup, you're welcome to. I mean, it's here. All right, so I can feel the heat. I'm going to take one strip. I'm going to put it in, and I want to just see it do that. I want it to bubble, and it's going to toast up really quick. And then I can pull it out just with a spoon. But I want to wait until it gets kind of golden toasted. I'm going to go and take a quick look at my soup and make sure that it's not over simmering. And no, it's actually perfect. It's just barely simmering on the stove, which is exactly what I want. So there we go. Pull this guy out. And I'm just going to drain it on the towel. Now, I'm going to grab a small handful. I don't want to put this whole stack in there because there's too many. There's no way that they're all going to toast evenly. I want a small handful. Basically just enough so that I can layer them in one layer in the oil. And try to put them in as quickly as you can because as soon as they start bubbling, they're going to start steaming. The oil won't burn you unless you touch it. And it's not going to splatter because there's no moisture in these corn tortillas. But the steam coming out of them might. So just drop them in, sprinkle them around, and then just get your hand out of the way. I like to give them a nice little spin. And then as soon as the bubbles kind of start tapering back and they get a little bit golden, you can pull them out. When you pull them out and you put them out here, very quickly after you get them out of your pan, sprinkle salt on them. This works best with a slotted spoon, or even if you have like a spider, one of those wire spiders. Great way to work with these. Go ahead and salt them. And we'll go in with our next batch. Again, just a little handful. Enough so that I can get one layer I'm just going to sprinkle them in and then very quickly get my hand out of the way. Twirl them around. And let them toast. And you can always taste the ones you pulled out. Yum. There we go. Now you don't want these to brown necessarily. You do want them to get toasted. If you let them go too brown, they're just going to taste burnt. So try to pull them before they're burnt, but after they've toasted and crisped up. That might take a little bit of experimentation, but you will get there. I'm doing another little batch. Probably do this in 4 batches. Feel free to spread them out with a spoon or a utensil if they're kind of clumped up or if they're laying on top of each other. Because you really want them to be in as close to one single layer as possible. Otherwise, the ones up on top will not crisp up and you'll have a couple of that are kind of bendy. Yeah, a wire spider. Do you know what those are? Like one of these guys. These were great for pulling things out of oil because they kind of keep your hands out of the way. You can grab large amounts of stuff as opposed to just a small spoon. I just had the spoon out on my cutting board, so I just decided to use a spoon. Mmm. Love crunching on tortilla strips. There we go. Batch 3 is done. And what I'm trying to do is kind of, when I put them onto the drain towel here, the paper towel, I'm trying to kind of leave them, like the first group I put in the middle, the second one I put up at the top, the third one I'm putting at the bottom, just so that I know that they're in different spaces, so I'm not double salting or triple salting. Because they can get over salted. So I'm trying to do just a little bit of organization. There we go. And the last batch will get in there. And the reason I give them a little spinny spin is because I want to make sure that they are totally covered in oil. I want to make sure that they are evenly covered in oil. There we go. I'll move them all up there. And these things cool off really quick once they get out of the oil. Once they get out of the pan. You Googled wire spider, but nothing like that came up. Just try like oil spider, maybe oil spider. Pretty sure they're called spiders. If you can't find it there, I will look it up and I will put it in the notes of the actual cooking, the actual recipe on cookalong.live, the website. But I'm pretty sure they're called spiders. There we go. Now I can turn this off because we are done. And we'll go ahead and pull these out. Again, put them in one spot, away from what's already been salted so I don't over-season stuff. Just separating them a bit so I can salt them evenly. Bit of salt. And my tortilla strips are done. All of them should be nice and crunchy. Mmm. Nice and toasty. It is that simple to make tortilla strips. If you want to make tortilla chips, it's that easy. You just cut them into triangles and fry them. Same thing. All right. So let's go ahead and move this out of the way. We will trade places with our soup, which again looks amazing. Give it another stir here. Make sure nothing is sticking to the bottom, which it can because now you've got a bunch of non-liquid in the pot. Get this on medium-low. I just want it to simmer. And we can plate up. I also like to kind of scrape down the sides as I'm going. If you can remember to. It's just less to clean. There we go. Now, I already have my accoutrement here. Just going to put my tortilla strips on the plate where the tortillas were. Like that. What? What do you want? I can get this out of the way. Let me grab a bowl and we will get this plated up. All right. So what I like to do when I'm plating up soup is I actually like to, if I'm going to have something in the middle, like I like to have the tortilla strips kind of sitting up out of the soup so they don't get soggy. I will actually plate stuff in that's not soup first, and then I'll pour the soup in after. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my ladle. And I'm going to kind of come in here and scoop out a bunch of the meat and stuff and just kind of drain out some of that soup. Because what I really want is the chicken. And you can keep shredded chicken on the side as well if you don't want to do it this way. I'm just going to pile that in the middle. And I might do another little pile. Like so. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take some of my tortilla strips and pile those on top of this. And what that's going to do is give me a nice little amount of elevation on my plate. There we go. Now, I'm going to switch over to this camera. And you can see that I've got a nice little mountain of tortilla there. So when I pour the soup, all of that tortilla is going to be up out of the broth, so it won't get super soggy. But it's still adding a little bit of an interesting dimension to the bowl. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get as much broth, or the tomatoes and all the rest of the stuff in here, as I can. And I'm going to pour that around the tortilla. And since most of this is just liquid, it's going to kind of naturally level out and fill in everything around the chips. There we go. Nice little bowl of soup. Still has the tortillas floating kind of out of the soup. So they're still not getting soggy. And I might give it a little shake if I need to fill in any little crevices with broth. And if I really want to get fancy, I might kind of play around with stuff to make it look cool. Now, on top of this, I'm going to flip it around just like this. You may take a towel, since you kind of splattered up on the sides, and just wipe them down. You'll notice the tip of my paper towel is actually touching the soup. And it'll create a little bit of a thing, but then I can come back with the dry edge and wipe it down all the way down. There we go. Nice, beautiful bowl of soup. I also want to add a couple of slices of avocado. Now, I have the avocado already sliced over here on my plate. So I'm just going to take it. I might turn it like that so I get a nice little curve. I'm going to place it right on the edge of this little pile of stuff in the middle so that it doesn't sink. It's going to stay right on top of everything. May take a piece of cilantro. Maybe put it from the back here, just kind of draping over the front. I have a couple of jalapeno. Might do 4 or 5. And maybe I'll kind of circle around the tortilla. There we go. Now I have some cotija cheese. Actually, this is queso fresco, but they're very, very similar. And I'm going to take this and just kind of try to sprinkle it on the outside, on the outer rim, so that it doesn't give any contrast to the middle, because I want those greens and I want the chips in the middle. I want those to kind of stand out. And then the little white dots will go around the outside. And there we go. Perfect. Now, this is where you get to decide whether you want to add any guacamole to your soup or not. In my case, I'm probably not going to, since there's already quite a bit going on in the plate. However, I am going to take a little bit of this cilantro. By the way, doing this with a cilantro is a great way to add cilantro for presentation, but not force your guest to eat it if they're not a cilantro person. I am a cilantro person, so I'm also going to cut just a little bit up. Something like that. And add that around the outside too, just to give it a little bit of playfulness with the queso fresco. And then last but not least, I have a half of a lime here. I'm just going to cut a wedge like so. And I'm not going to cut straight down the middle. I'm actually going to cut up at an angle like this. And that way I can hang it on the side of the bowl, and it won't be like a weird lime wedge. It'll actually look like it's just kind of floating there. So I'm just going to do almost like a 45, actually more like a 60-degree cut. Down like that. Get that cilantro off. Then I can hang it on the side of the bowl. like so. Alternately, if I want more lime showing, I do the same thing, but instead of cutting down, or instead of starting my cut up here, I'm going to start it down further. Do the same type of a cut though, an angle down, and I get the lime sitting a little bit higher on the bowl, but it won't fall into the soup because the cut is not like a straight cut. So I'll do something like that. Actually put it right about there. And there you go. Beautiful bowl of chicken enchilada soup. And the cool thing about this, one of the reasons I love doing plating, is because it doesn't take much time to make something look awesome. You just have to take a few minutes to think about what you want to do with it, and then you can make something look like it comes out of a restaurant, even like a high-end restaurant, when it's not necessarily a high-end dish. I mean, this is chicken enchilada soup is not something that's super bougie. It's not something that's super fancy, but you can make it look like you put hours and hours of time into it, just with a couple of little, you know, couple of little adjustments on how it shows on the plate. And when you give somebody something that looks this good, they're going to love it because it looks like something coming from a gourmet kitchen. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. So here we go with our chicken tortilla soup and our guacamole. Done. And you know what? I lied. I actually see a little spot where I can put a little dollop of guacamole. I just want it to be a little bit of a right there. Sneak it in. Right in that little void, that little extra space where the avocado was curled around. That guacamole fits perfectly. There we go. Done. All right. Give me a sec to take a couple of pictures for the socials, and then I'll give it a taste and let you all know what I think. I want to know what you guys think, and I want to see your pictures of what you've made. Take the pictures, put them on Instagram, or email me. You can go to cookalong.live, the website, cookalong.live. There's an email link or a contact link. You can send me an email with your pictures. Or if you're on Instagram or Facebook, go and look me up, cookalong.live on Instagram. Tag me in those pictures. Post them and do an @. Absolutely @ me. @ me, cookalong.live on Instagram. And on Facebook, it's cookalong livestream, cookalong.livestream. And I need to go get my sync cam because it is my phone, so I can take these pictures. And I'm pretty pleased with how this came out. I think it looks great. And this is literally how I take my pictures all the time. I just put them on my cutting board, I go to portrait mode, and then I just kind of do the centering thing and snap. There we go. Beautiful photo. All right. Let's taste. I'm going to go ahead and stop that, let it start cooling down so I can put it into the fridge. Grab some cojita or some queso fresco. Cojita is usually what I get, which is why I keep calling it cojita. Grab some of everything. A couple of chips. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's even better than the taster version. That's really good. So you all know, maybe you don't know, every week I have to make 2 of these dishes. I make one to, number 1, make sure the recipe works. whatever recipe, whether I got it from something that I've done in the past or find it on the internet, and I make any adjustments that I want to it as I'm cooking it, so I can get the initial picture to tell you guys about the stream coming up. Because I can't just go and grab stuff off of the internet because that's copyright infringement. So I make my food and then I take a good picture of it. And then I always think between when I make it and when I actually cook it and present it, what do I want to do differently to maybe see if I can make it a little bit better for the stream. This is one of them that just like, it was good when I made it for the picture. It's really good tonight. It is fantastic. Highly recommend you give this a try. This is super yummy. A little spicy. I like spicy, so I'm fine with it. But if I were cooking for somebody who is not a spicy person, I would probably use the mild enchilada sauce instead of grabbing the hot. This is not too spicy for me. It's actually, I'd say like, if I give it from 1 to 10, where 10 is like the most I can eat before I become uncomfortable, this is probably like a 7, so it's like perfect for me, but it's delicious. It's got that roasted corn flavor. The beans come through, the avocado. The cream cheese. Yum. Give this a shot if you haven't and you're just watching the stream. The recipe will be on cookalong.live. That's the website address, cookalong.live. Go ahead and check that site out. You'll see all of the streams that are coming up. You'll be able to get the ingredients lists so you can jump onto these streams and cook along with me. You can also subscribe to me on YouTube. That's another way you can see things that are coming up. They pop up at the top of the channel. You can also toggle a little bell when you subscribe. That'll notify you when I post new stuff. So that's another way to do it. Follow me on Instagram, cookalong.live, or on Facebook, cookalong.livestream, and you'll see everything that I'm going to be making that's coming up. So you'll get a notification of what this week's recipe or what that week's recipe will be. You'll know what to get. You'll be linked to the ingredients, and you'll be able to get them all ready and set up so that you can cook along live just like everybody else. It was awesome. And what do we got? Wire spider, don't know what they are. Okay, got that. Wire spider cooking did the trick. Perfect. A cold beer or margarita would go with that right about now. Well, I got the beer. You missed me pouring it because you jumped on a little bit late, but that's fine. Oh, the other thing with subscribing to YouTube is if you like to watch this on a TV, if you have a YouTube app on your TV or on like an Apple TV or a Google TV, Google, whatever Google's version of Apple TV is, or a Roku or something like that, if you have those apps, I'll show up in your subscriptions so you can actually watch me on your TV while you're cooking if you don't want to watch it on a computer screen. So that's another benefit to that. This turned out to be even more delicious than expected, and my expectations are high. Thank you so much for, yep, absolutely, Elliot. I'm glad you joined, man. Come back and join me for some more. I love cooking along with people. I had a wonderful time, and you're a great teacher. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. This is so good. I sent you pictures. Perfect. Oh, yeah, anybody who didn't make it tonight needs to do it. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Woo. Awesome. Love it, Ryan. Well, we're at the end of the stream tonight. Next week, we're going to be making coq au vin. So if you like French cooking and you want to make chicken with red wine, or cock with wine is the literal translation, we're going to be playing with some cock next week. That being said, it's going to be chicken. We can't get rooster here. So it's going to be a little bit more tame than I think you might be thinking. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week, the week we're going into. I'll see you next week on another Cook Along Live. Have a great night.